Greetings sailors and welcome to a bit of live gameplay because I've decided to do today a kind of a follow-up to my Hood preview video now that I've had a chance to play it a bit more. Now I didn't rush out and buy one myself, I'm not quite that loaded, but I was gifted one by a viewer, Losqualo, and as you can see I've gotten as far with the missions as actually unlocking the camos for both this and well, also the Bismarck. Now my plan is that I'm going to play one round in this and then one round in the Scharnhorst, and the point is it's all live basically. It's all just happening as it happens, and it will give me a chance to talk about the respective ships a little bit, and also to talk about the Hood in particular because of course the preview ship wasn't quite the final state that we had it in. So before we jump into the actual gameplay, I decided to show you guys the stats for the respective ships. So this is warships.today, which is one of the various sites that can get your stats from the Wargaming API. And as you can see, I've got tier 7 battleships selected. Now, they're a bit of an odd bunch, really, because the ones that I have done best in were not really my favourite ones, and then the ones that I like are apparently the ones that I've not done that well in. So, I mean, if I sort by win rate, for instance, it's actually the Hood that's on top, and I couldn't quite tell you why that is. I mean, if I sort it the other way, it's actually the Nagato on the bottom, and yet I quite like the Nagato, but for some reason it's been a bit of a cursed ship for me. And if I compare the Nagato and Colorado stats, you know, I've been performing about the same in both. Apparently slightly worse XP-wise than the Colorado, but for some reason that represents a 6% win rate difference. Couldn't tell you why. But in terms of the ships I've done best in overall, I mean, the Gneisenau actually comfortably beats out the Scharnhorst, both in the win rate, average damage, and XP, and I'm not entirely sure why that is either, why I was apparently doing that much better in the Gneisenau, because one of the things that the Hood has that makes it rather frustrating at times is not particularly great accuracy. It's got very, very deeply average accuracy, in fact. And so you would think with more guns than the Gneisenau that I would actually, you know, be able to do better in it. But over the same number of battles, no, I actually have done better in the Gneisenau. And that's because I suspect both the Gneisenau and the Scharnhorst have things going for them that the Hood doesn't, even though the Hood shares some of the same drawbacks. So the Hood, I mean, one of the reasons why I think people have been a bit disappointed by it is that it's got plenty of downsides, but it doesn't seem to have any real strong points that you can point to and say this is a really good thing. I mean, there's the speed and there's the survivability overall. I mean, it's not that it's really difficult to citadel, but it is actually quite tanky. It's actually quite a survivable ship if you play it right. But there are certain situations where it is actually very bad in that regard. I mean, if you're solo and trying to charge down a destroyer on a smoke cloud, for instance, I've tried that a couple of times, it usually doesn't go well because you've got very poor maneuverability and no way to get extra detection on torpedoes outside of the captain's skill, which actually might be a really good one to take on the Hood. So it's a real mixed bag, but I mean, the stats on the face of it seem to say that the Hood's actually not that bad a ship. But I think there's a little bit more to it, and I've got a couple of thoughts in that regard. But let's go back into the game and actually play some warships. So here we are. Top tier, very good matchmaking, although the enemy team does have a pair of kamikazes, which actually might be quite difficult to deal with. The carrier is lower tier, which is good for me because the AA, despite the defensive AA, is seriously weak. I mean, apart from the defensive AA, it is the worst of the tier 7 battleships. I think it's actually worse than the Nagato for its AA. If I'm remembering correctly, but because you've got that defensive AA, it occasionally swings from being very weak to very, very strong. But even then, I mean, if you're bottom tier, if there's a tier 9 carrier in the mix, I've had tier 9 carriers dropping dive bombs on me, and or using their dive bombers on me, and only shot down, you know, half a dozen planes. So of course, even with it being super strong at that close range, especially if you've got any kind of AA skills going on, it's still completely RNG with defensive AA and actually shooting down planes. So even the defensive AA isn't that much of a help, to be honest. Now, the reason why I think the stats are, on the face of it, actually pretty decent is because I've had a lot of games in that 70 to 80k damage bracket. I've had a handful of games over 100k, like maybe half a dozen out of the 30 odd that you saw the stats for there, and obviously I've had some that are worse than that, but I mean, even a really bad damage game, I think I've had a couple where it's just been absolutely like 20k or less, and then the rest are at least above 50k, and I think that's why the stats, the averages, are actually pretty good. Because some of the other ships, like the Gneisenau, for instance, you might have one really disappointing round followed by an absolute monster next round, and you just don't get those monster games in the Hood. The best damage I've had so far was about 124k, and I debated putting it on the channel, but basically it was a complete damage farm. It was a Nagato that had stopped dead broadside in the water ahead of me, and even then it took multiple goes before I was able to get a Citadel, and then I got to drive up broadside to another Hood whose guns were pointing the other way because he was just ignoring me, and I was able to just again farm him to the point where I killed him. So it wasn't a particularly interesting or exciting game, and you kind of need to have that damage farm going on to actually be able to get any significant amount of damage done. So, I mean, there's a couple of things. I've said it is quite survivable, and that's in your favour, because the longer you can survive, the longer you can do damage. It's just it's such a slow chipping away with this ship for the most part. So, because it is so consistent, because you don't get those flashy, exciting games, but you're still having games where you're getting 70k over and over and over and over. That's why the average stats are actually, you know, quite good. But that's not very satisfying as a player experience. I think people are more likely to enjoy a ship where they can have that monster round every once in a while, even if the rest of them might occasionally be really disappointing. So it's a very average ship. It's very good at being, you know, at doing X amount of damage every battle. It's very good at being consistent, but that doesn't mean it's good at being exciting. And there are times when it's just straight up frustrating as all hell. And I mean, that was the same with the Gneisenau, despite the stats for that actually being quite good. I had plenty of games where that was an extremely frustrating experience, but that's, like I said, that's got other things going for it. You know, it's got the survivability of this, it's or better. It's got the secondaries. It's got very good AA for its tier. If you get an AA spec captain on either of the tier 7 Germans, the Gneisenau or the Scharnhorst, you can do very well. And of course, it's got torpedoes as well, so you get in close. Not only have you got the secondaries working with you, but then you get that bonus potential torpedo damage. So there's just this whole suite of things that are alongside the fact that, yeah, maybe the guns are occasionally really frustrating and troll, but it's not half bad, you know. It's still got a lot of other things going for it. And the Hood doesn't, and it's such a kind of standoffish ship. It's not a ship where you ever really want to get close enough for your secondaries to even start engaging, especially not against a destroyer. I think the best you can manage is something like 7.3, because it's the same base secondary range as the Warspite, but your secondaries aren't as good as the Warspite secondaries. That's actually got more of them. So this is why it's just such a kind of frustrating ship in a lot of ways, because you have to work really hard for the damage that you do manage to do, and it plays a lot like the Scharnhorst in that, especially with the AP, it often feels like you're having to hit people a lot, and even when you get squashy targets like cruisers, as I noted, you know, and having played it more since release, it's still that feast or famine feeling where it's either well, if you hit them to begin with, of course, it's either a bunch of overpens or you get some citadels. Although it's rarely multiple citadels in a row. I don't think I've ever just straight up deleted a cruiser that wasn't already very low health. which is, I mean, in a way, that's kind of more balanced to play against. I mean, it's like you don't have to worry that much if you're then playing against a hood. They're not just going to obliterate you with a broadside like the phj might do, for instance. So that's, I mean, I'm not necessarily complaining about that. That's more just of an observation. But, I mean, what they did do with the turret traverse, that was at least quite welcome. With it going from 60 seconds to 36 seconds. And 36 seconds is actually really good for its tier. So, you know, that part I'm fine with. But I'm still overall of the opinion, and this was what I was thinking while I was playing it, whilst testing it, that I would have taken more accurate guns, just so, like, even without the buffs they made to the shell arming time, it would have felt more like you actually can be more reliable and more consistent for your team, because there have been plenty of situations, plenty of games where it comes down to it, and maybe you're one of the few ships left alive, and you just can't land the shells that you need to land. And even when you do land them, they're so inconsistent, and you know, they seemingly do so little to the enemy that it's just extremely vexatious. So it's not that you can't do well in the hood. It absolutely isn't that you can't do well in the hood. It can be a very sort of solid, stable, average performer, in that you can get great consistency out of it. But it's not, you know, for a thing that I want to pay money for. It's not really what I'd go for. Oh dear, goodbye, Nicholas. Might actually get blapped by torpedoes himself, though. Not sure that was a good trade, Nicholas, but okay. Having said what I've said, this might actually be a really terrible damage game. I've struggled to hit anything. It really is a medium range fighter, this. Like, you cannot get too close, especially when you know they have torpedoes, because you do not do well in close quarters. And so you're just always forced to fight at these medium ranges, and even then the guns are incredibly troll sometimes when you're trying to save an ally. Like this Emil Bartan, for instance, he's in danger, right? What do you think the chances are of me actually hitting this Furutaka in order to save him? Because I'll tell you now, the chances are probably not good. It straddles so often, and even when you do hit, it's more likely than not to be. There we go, an overpen and a ricochet. These do not feel like 15-inch battleship guns. They feel like the Scharnhorst's 11-inch guns, which is specifically why I'm going to take the Scharnhorst next, just to, you know, give a point of comparison. And the Scharnhorst is just more fun. I mean, having said that, I might end up now having a really terrible Scharnhorst round. I should have gone the other way, really, shouldn't I? I wanted to actually help that guy, but there's still things to kill. There's still damage to be done. So, yeah, it's just, I don't know. It's not something I think is worth the most expensive package. And the fact that they then locked away the historical skin, the grey camo behind the most expensive package. I mean, the fact that you can get this for free and you can even unlock it without having the ship, that's fine. That's quite nice. But it's the rest of it that's just really frustrating. So the kamikaze is a serious problem. They still have a carrier around somewhere, and that Colorado also is going to be very tricky to deal with. I'm not too worried about the carrier, though, just because the carrier is only a tier 6. And it looks like our T-22 is going to go and deal with him anyway. So this isn't won yet by any means. Right, there's the kamikaze. So, yeah, even if I get a clear shot at the kamikaze, you know, by the time I spot him, I'm well within the danger zone. With his reload and just the woffishness of these guns and the ineffectiveness of the secondaries, that's one of the biggest weak points overall. That, like, this is a battleship that really struggles so badly to defend itself against destroyers. I mean, if I was in a Scharnhorst right now, I'd just charge that smoke, and I'd have a spotter or a fighter in there. I'd have something, you know, that would give me some fair warning. But as it is, I now just have to angle away, wait for the smoke to dissipate, because going in against that kamikaze would be a very bad idea, especially as this ship has the worst torpedo bulge protection. And again, I'm going by memory here, but I'm pretty sure it's the worst for a tier 7 battleship. It's not good. It's just not good. So, maybe I should be firing at this carrier instead. Nope, 1 pen for 1800 damage. That must have been superstructure. So, our carrier at least is just hovering his planes overhead there, which is nice. I guess we'll fire at the view show. Angle away from the Congo and the Colorado. Right, I'm not entirely sure what range to give here. Is he actually stationary? Or is he like reversing? It's really hard to tell. Oh, there we go. one over pen, straddles, might get another pen there, or is that also going to straddle? Yeah, there we go. This is at 15 kilometers, so this is, I mean, one of the buffs, another one of the buffs they gave it was actually increasing the firing range, which was just useless, honestly, because if you're sailing around firing at max range in a hood, you're never going to do anything. It's not like the Fuso where just the sheer number of shells you put out actually give you a decent chance of doing something. Oh dear, no, we actually lost the T-22. So no, it's not good in that regard. I really need our carrier to keep signposting that kamikaze. Oh well, right, this might actually be a loss, but we'll see. Still got Colorado to deal with. Not too worried about the carrier, but the kamikaze might well... oh, he's actually going for the New York. So that was 3 shells landed for a grand total of, what was that, 3k damage? Yeah. Well, that's against a tier 5 battleship. You just don't get citadels against other battleships unless they are battleships that just don't have any armour to begin with. So I've done things like Citadel Fusos and Citadel Congos, but even things like, you know, the Nagato, you get really close up, and it's just very difficult to do anything. Anyway, if this guy brings his planes close enough, my AA might actually be able to do something, but I guess I should concentrate more on this. I might even switch to HE, quite honestly, because the AP is just... ineffective, especially if it's going to angle like that. Yeah, let's go for the HE. It's definitely ineffective. No, that was a 0 damage pen. I'm not entirely sure of the mechanism for that, but it's right, I guess we'll trigger the defensive. Right, what's the Koenig doing? I can't even really just like properly turn for these torque bombers because I don't want to give that much angle to the Koenig. That's fine. Right, fire. Oh, the New York's dead. Yeah, I don't think we're winning this one. This is going to be one of those terrible damage games. So, I mean, this is not... I mean, this is one of the other things I was going to say. This is a very poor ship for carrying games in. Just because of your damage dealing capabilities, you cannot do a lot of damage at once. It's a steady, slow, damage over time kind of ship. And that makes coping with situations like this extremely difficult. Like, there's not that much I can do here except just plug away at this guy with HE and hope he shows broadside and maybe then switch to AP shells. Right, and I don't want to do a close pass with him because his secondaries are better and he will obliterate me a lot more easily than I'll obliterate him. Because his guns are just flat out so much better than mine. Right, so bring the turrets around. No turret skill. Why did I only... What? Why did only one gun fire there? That's really weird. Yeah, I don't understand that. That's really weird. It only clearly registered the click to fire one of the guns, even though both back guns were ready and pointed in the correct direction. Right, he's angling again, so that means, yeah, this AP is probably not going to do a lot. I guess we'll try and aim for superstructure there. And again, only one gun. What I don't understand. Don't understand. Anyway. World of Warships. So we're actually now approaching the 70k. I probably will hit that 70k before we finish this. Although, having said that, I don't know if I'm going to survive that long. So yeah, I mean, as you can see, this does not do well against other battleships close quarters. If they're paying no attention to you, if their guns are pointed elsewhere, maybe. But, I mean, I can't overmatch this guy's bow armour. And the secondaries, you can see how effective those are. So, and I don't even have defensive AA back to deal with those planes. So, I mean, the damage, we're over 70k now. It's very consistent, but it's also at the same time crap because I had very little chance of carrying this. Because it's a very bad ship for a lot of situations. So if your team's doing well, and then you can do quite well, you can actually even tank quite a lot of damage for your team. But I mean, this was a close game. I feel like in a Scharnhorst, I'd have had a hell of a lot better chance. I could have gotten up close to that Colorado and torpedoed him in the face. I could have much more confidently dealt with that destroyer. My AA would have actually, been a hell of a lot more effective. And I'd have been as fast, my secondaries would have been better, my armour would have been as good. So, like even the Gneisenau, it would have been so much better. So this is why people are ragging on the hood a bit. You can do okay in the hood, but even compared to like the Nagato, I think I'd have felt much more comfortable in the Nagato, because with that bow on Colorado, I know I could have overmatched his bow, and you just can't do that because the AP is... It's like tier 6 battleship AP, and you have all these other disadvantages. So this is why people are ragging on the hood, because it's not like it's unplayable, and as the stats show, it can actually be very, very consistent, but it's also very, very poor in a lot of ways. So let's try the Scharnhorst, where the AP frankly feels about as effective, even though these are 11-inch guns versus the 15-inch guns that Hood supposedly has, but doesn't really. Right into a battle. Okay, we'll see what we get this time. So, once more, top tier, again, tier 6 carriers, and my AA. I mean, I don't even really have any AA skills, apart from, I think, AFT on this captain. This is, I'm using the Scharnhorst to train up a captain for the tier 9 German battleship, because I'm going to leave my... I kind of alternate my Bismarck captain, which was once my Tirpitz captain, back into the Tirpitz, because that's my only 19-point captain, so I use the Tirpitz particularly to get captain XP and free XP. So I'm using the Scharnhorst instead to actually train up the captain for tier 9. So he's at like 10 points, so he's got a decent spread of skills already, but yeah, it's actually less skills than the Hood captain. And I did, when I was testing, I was actually playing the Hood with my actually it's one of the other counts against it. I was actually playing the Hood against with my Warspite captain, but the skills that you would use in a Warspite don't necessarily apply to the Hood. I mean, Expert Marksman in particular is utterly unnecessary on the Hood now with its 36-second turret traverse. So you can't even use it to train up the captain that you've got on a Warspite if you already have the Warspite, without either having wasted skill points or else trying to maybe force... I mean, you could, in theory, have like a secondary spec Hood, but it wouldn't be very good. It would be a bit of a waste of time. And, I mean, I know not everybody's going to have a secondary spec Warspite captain, but for tier 6, the Warspite's actually got pretty decent secondaries. So it really does play very differently. It's a very different sort of ship. Not entirely sure where this Scharnhorst is going, but he's going to scrape some paint off my size if he keeps doing that. Anyway. So yeah, I feel like despite the health pool and the tankiness, you have to be very, very standoffish in a Hood, and it's a very poor carrying ship. It's not a ship that... it doesn't pose a serious threat to the enemy team, whereas something like the Scharnhorst, the Gneisenau, Nagato, even the Colorado can, when played well, be a ship that the enemy team really seriously has to take notice of, whereas the Hood, like even having played against it, I often ignore it to prioritise other ships because I know it's not that big of a threat. It's a threat over time, over the span of a battle. But I mean, if you get a 10-minute warships battle, then it might not even be a factor. So, anyway, let's hope I'm not horribly overleading after having been playing the Hood, because that's the other thing you have to put up with, is very slow shells. Slow shells and German accuracy does not go well together. The Germans, at least, you get those nice fast shell speeds. That's just not the case with the Hood. There's just so many like downsides, so many points where you can say, oh, the Hood isn't great in this area, and it's not great in this area, and it's not great in this area, but it's a lot harder to say, you know, the stuff that it is actually genuinely good at. Anyway, that's a first blood. That's quite nice. And, oh, that York appears to have the premium camo, which you don't see very often. Probably because it's not that overall popular a ship. Although German cruisers are getting a buff next patch, which might particularly benefit the York, because the York already has... it's a bit of an oddity in that it's one of the few that actually has strong HE, more or less, at the moment. Let's also get my railway AA guns range up. Right, so that Scharnhorst is all the way over there. Probably going to want to turn around relatively soon. There's a Gneisenau. Right, let's pop a spotter plane. And then, you might have indicated you were going to turn Scharnhorst. This is actually now going to be a little bit awkward. Right, I guess I missed that York. I'm also just maybe going to... Whoa, whoa. Oh, oh, ah, oh, almost. We almost made it. Calculated. Badly calculated. That's a thing, right? Right, not too worried about that Farragut, and yeah, even when you're having to fire HE, which, you know, in the Scharnhorst with 11-inch guns is a not infrequent occurrence. It's like I found myself, and this is still true, I said this in the review or preview, I found myself reaching for the HE quite often, especially against German ships, and of course, with the reload you get on these 11-inch guns, it's just so much more effective for that, and it feels like you're doing, you know, the same amount of damage almost. Right, I wonder if that guy's used... oh, he must have used a damage control, so if we can get a little fire going on this Gneisenau. Oh, hello, Nuremberg. Oh, I'm sorry, but if you're in a cruiser, it's... you're going to cut across the path of a fast battleship like that. It's kind of what you must expect to happen. Right, anyway, right. No one else is going to run into me. Fine. So that guy's burning. We can get another fire going. I'm not going to plough in just face first because they have a lot of German battleships, so unlike the previous situation where going in against the Colorado, having the torpedoes would have been really useful, and the secondaries, this is more of an equal playing field. Is he actually backing up, maybe? So yeah, this is just like, it's just such a more fun ship to play, the Scharnhorst, and you might have arguments about, well, how balanced is the Scharnhorst then, but that, you know, that's a separate thing really. But just as a premium ship that you would pay money for, the Scharnhorst is unquestionably the better buy. It's the better value for money vessel. Whereas the Hood is just, well, that guy's feeling brave. The Hood, it just is not. The Hood is just this really super inconsistent vessel that Well, not super inconsistent. Consistent in some ways, but like inconsistent in others and frustrating in others. I think that's the important part I'm trying to get across, is that the Hood is a very frustrating ship a lot of the time. So even though my averages on the Scharnhorst are actually worse than the Hood, I've had much more fun games in this ship, and I've had you know, sometimes those games where it's really high damage, or well, comparatively high damage, and you save the match and you get in close at the end and use your torpedoes and use your secondaries and all the rest of it, and the Hood just really cannot do that consistently, or even I don't want to say at all. It can't do it at all. You know, somebody will probably immediately send in a replay where they've managed to do just that, but it's such a harder thing, it's such a less likely thing to happen in a Hood. I'm not sure why our Hood kept sailing down there when he saw that everybody else had turned back, because we'd encountered basically all of their battleships, apart from the Nagato. I don't know. Minimaps are hard, apparently. I've observed this quite often, especially playing World of Tanks earlier today. There were a lot of people for whom minimaps were very, very hard. Maybe switch back to HE. Oh, Gneisenau's a bit closer though. Let's maybe try that guy. He's actually looking this way. So yeah, I mean, I largely stand by, like, I've kind of been surprised by the stats, I think is the whole point of this video, but I largely stand by my conclusions, and I hope I've laid out why I think the stats are, the averages are as good as they are, because I just keep getting those average games over and over again. And at the end of the day, you know, you're going to do, like, as an earner, as a premium ship, if you can just consistently get that same amount of damage over and over again, it's actually going to be not at all unprofitable. But you know, is it worth the frustration? Because ultimately, if I'm buying a ship, a premium ship, I want it to at least be fun to play. I don't want it to be like the Jagdtiger 8.8 of old in World of Tanks, which was one of the best credit makers, but also incredibly frustrating and boring to play. So, you know, that's not my only criteria for a premium, is how much money it makes. It's an important one to be sure, but it's like I want a ship that isn't just going to frustrate the hell out of me, because then I'm never going to want to play it. And at that point, it's just wasted money. So I'm not saying the Hood's that bad. I think that the Hood is, like, with a couple of judicious buffs, like, you could easily overbuff the Hood. But if you didn't go nuts, I think actually you could make the Hood such a pleasant ship to play overall. And it would just be a big improvement. It would be much more desirable as a premium than what we have now. So even though I've done a lot less damage so far, I'm definitely having a lot more fun. And I can confidently go in close against this Nagato, because I know that I've got my torpedoes. And I've got my secondaries. And I've got a pretty good chance of nailing this guy hard. So that could potentially be quite a decent amount more damage. Let's actually see if we can get a few more plane kills as well. I don't have manual AA focus on this captain. I think I probably will do eventually. I might do what I did with my Tirpitz, actually, just have like manual AA focus and... is he backing off? Yeah, he's stopped going forwards to the spoil sport. I might have manual AFT and manual AA, which means you don't have as many skill points to go around the lower points of the captain points, if that makes any sense. You know what I mean? I kind of know what I mean, sort of. yeah, it's actually a really powerful combo. Because AFT benefits both, and then you've got both the manual AA and the other one to really try and just make carriers' lives a bit miserable. Right, I'm going to take some of them, but I do actually have... Oh, no, I didn't even flood. Never mind. Because my torpedo bulge protection doesn't totally suck. Although, actually, no, I don't think that has anything to do with flooding or not, having said that. Right, so they've both been firing away at me. What's the surviving Scharnhorst been doing? Sailing away. So I've been distracting all these guys. But I suppose still we're all within firing range of each other. And I'm taking a thorough battering, and I'm actually, you know, if I can do a bit better, I can live. I might even get some okay damage out of this. And it'd probably be about the same amount of damage as the last game, but I'll have enjoyed myself a lot more doing it, because I know this is so much more a capable ship than Hood. And I'm just, even with the 30 odd battles, I've played as many battles in the Hood as the Scharnhorst, and I'm still waiting for that one battle. And Flamu said basically exactly the same thing. He's still waiting for that one kind of standout battle that really feels good, that feels satisfying, that has a good result. And if it hasn't happened in 30 battles, I suspect I'm going to be waiting a lot longer before it does finally happen. Right, that's the Ryusho making another pass at me, maybe? I don't think I can get that much more health back, so I've got to be a little bit careful here. Make sure I've got the bombers selected. Yeah, they're going through me, but I've actually got some fighter cover as well, so that's nice. So yeah, don't buy a Hood. I mean, some people will have anyway, and honestly, it's not unplayable, but I mean, yeah, the Scharnhorst is just better. It just is. And I will be interested to see if they buff the Hood at some point in the future. And if they do, it will almost certainly be because it hasn't sold well. And this kind of feels like almost a situation with the Prince Eugen, where they're just relying on the name to actually sell. You know, I'm not saying I want this ship to be OP, because OP premiums are not good for the game. But it would be nice if it was at least a decently fun ship to play. If it was a decently strong ship to play, or if it had some like situations even where it could be really strong, instead of this just nothing at the moment where it just has to do the same thing over and over, and it doesn't have any kind of particular playstyle strengths to play to. There's no great benefits. What is this clump of ships here doing? Why did they go all the way back round there? They're not even in a division, and the Scharnhorst especially could really use his hit points right now, because the enemy Scharnhorst is very healthy. So we're probably going to actually beat the damage I did last time. So it's not like this is a spectacular damage game or anything, but it's not been bad. And it also just shows that, you know, despite the fact that this has 11-inch guns and the other has 15-inch guns, it, practically speaking, makes no damn difference whatsoever, except with these you get to fire a lot more often. So just on that basis alone, you know, the Scharnhorst is a lot nicer to play. Doesn't matter if the RNG trolls you, because you'll get the guns back relatively soon after. So I might actually switch back to HE for this guy at this range. Get some fires going, that actually might be more effective. Not sure we can do much for that Pensacola though. But yeah, I think we're going to win this one fairly comfortably. It's a pity we didn't win the Hood game, but as was made painfully clear, it's not a carrying ship. It just isn't, especially if there are other battleships left in play. If you've got a couple of low health cruisers left to deal with, you've maybe got a better chance, but even then, a couple of kiting cruisers will still be able to outpace you I mean, it depends on the cruiser, but they might still be able to outpace you by a knot or two. And if they can keep their distance and just keep relying on your poor dispersion, at that point it just becomes a matter of firing enough salvos until RNG makes one stick eventually. Which is a really boring way to play a battleship. It just makes you feel as though your aiming doesn't actually matter that much. Like, getting good results in the Hood, it's just a matter of persistence and also stupid enemies. You need, as I had in that 124 or 125k game, you need battleships that you can just farm that aren't shooting back at you, essentially. Because otherwise, the guns just are not reliable enough. So 83k, nothing spectacular. Actually above my average for this ship by a reasonable amount. And I actually felt like I could be effective and aggressive, and I could push and get in people's faces and be threatening, and the Hood just has none of that. So that's the biggest deficit of the Hood by far. It feels almost like being a lower tier ship, even if you're top tier. And if you are bottom tier, if you get into a tier 9 game, good luck. It's not a fun experience at all. So, I think we'll just, by the magic of editing... Oh, never mind. I was going to say jump straight to the score screen, but here we are anyway, courtesy of the other Scharnhorst on our team. So there we are. 83k damage done. And I'll actually check what the credits were for that last Hood game. So this one we made about 250,000 credits profit, which is okay. And I didn't even see where we were on the team list, but you know what, it doesn't actually matter. Let's take a look at the Hood game and see what we did there profit wise. So with all the premium consumables, I still made more credits. And I think we actually had about the same, just slightly less damage done. And in fact, a whole bunch of that, you know, 56k with the main batteries. 126 shells fired, 25 hits for the 39k. 25 is actually an okay, but that accuracy is fairly horrible. But a big chunk of that damage was actually from HE, setting fires. And with a Scharnhorst, we did set 1 or 2 fires, but I mean, facing that angled Colorado, there we go, 19k, 64k. Facing that angled Colorado was just like, what can you do except fire HE? And it'd almost be the same in this ship, except with this ship you wouldn't be running the other way. You'd be running towards the Colorado to use your torpedoes. So I really sincerely hope that we get some buffs. I don't think it needs major buffs. I think with all the other stats it has, like honestly, I'd even accept a slow rate of fire if I could get that Warspite 2.0 Sigma, which as far as I know Warspite still has, unless they've made a change to that I wasn't aware of. Or even a 1.9 Sigma, like maybe 2.0 would be a bit too much, but just a better Sigma value, or maybe a buff to the shell penetration. I mean, then even though it has not great AA and not great secondaries, and it's got that huge turning radius, you could live with it if it actually felt like your main battery was far more effective than it is at the moment. So I would honestly live with a slower rate of fire if it meant that the guns felt far more effective, and not that I was playing with the 11-inch guns of the Scharnhorst, except with a much worse reload, because that's what the Hood feels like at the moment. So there it is, a whole bunch of, you know, waffling about the Hood and the Scharnhorst, and I thought it would be interesting to follow up just because I have played it now a bunch more. And having played it a bunch more, I don't think they did change any of the stats going into the release version, apart from the actual turret traverse. So yeah, the Hood needs buffs. Hard to recommend. Wouldn't really buy it myself, even though it's the Hood. And that's the part that does feel, you know, cheap, like they're just relying on you wanting it because it's the Hood. So Anyway, fingers crossed that Wargaming will, in fact, do something about that sooner rather than later, but you never know. So hopefully you found this video entertaining, and if you have, you can hit the like button, you can leave any comments below, you can sub to my channel if you haven't already, and, as always, stay tuned for more.